Namo Pho, Namo Fa, Namo Seng. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Welcome everyone. I'm happy to have you all in the teaching hall to continue our study of the art of keeping the light, or the 48 methods of Niem Pho, of Buddha recitation. We have done firstly the 3 sections relative to the 3 doors, so important in Mahayana Buddhism. The door of body, speech and mind. And we generally chant in the verse of atonement in the daily liturgy that we avow all bad karma that we've done through body, speech and mind. That's how we cultivated illusion, ignorance, hatred, greed. That's how important it is. And we've also seen how important it was to begin by mind. And when we begin by mind, we've been talked about action. So there's a strong link there. Then we've seen the exoterics, the simple ways of chanting the name of the Buddha with beads, out loud, aloud, or in a low voice. And today we will talk about more esoteric, per se, ways to practice the recitation of the Buddhas. So we will read the text. The next section, section number 7, is called Diamond Recitation, or Vajra Recitation. I read the text. If the mind is agitated and the breath is uneven, something is bothering you. Or reciting the Buddha's name either aloud or in a low voice seems inconvenient. You should just move your lips and practice silent recitation, diamond recitation, Vajra recitation, that recitation that cuts through all things. With this method, the number of recitation does not matter. The essential condition is that each word, each recitation should come from mind. So we see here that we've entered what I call the exoteric way. There is nothing magical about being exoteric. One of its aspects is that the number of recitation doesn't count anymore. It isn't about accumulation. It is about sincere practice. And this sincere practice has for particularity to be done in silence. Nothing is heard. Only the lips move. Sometimes there are also manual of meditation or advices in this sense that says that you must that Vajra recitation is recitating while is recitating in a way that only someone really next to you could hear your recitation. So it doesn't to be silent. It can be very, very, very low. That's the point of it. But generally we say it's silent. So the text begins by saying, if the mind is agitated or the breath uneven. That's the first time we hear about the breath in such a way. So sometimes we need great energy, we will chant aloud. Sometimes we need to calm down and we need to have first a deeper breath before chanting aloud and having that really deep technique of breathing, which is chanting aloud. and we need chanting in a low voice. And sometimes the breath is so even, it's so difficult. Really, chi circulation, breath in a breath is so bad that we need to only say it with our lips. And that Vajra recitation has a wonderful taste. It is the taste of oneness, because its point really, and that's where it is esoteric, is to chant with all body, all mind, all speech. So that body, speech and mind, body, breath and mind, which is the subtle speech, if you want, is inner breath, are in harmony. Let me drink a bit. So, this form of recitation is the mantric recitation. No exterior sound is produced. And then this recitation is a purely mental type of recitation. With a unified concentration, each recitation comes from the most intimate part of our being, and it is received, heard by the most intimate part of our being. And then the number of recitation, the position of the body, doesn't really count. What is important is unified attention. It is important to maintain that unified attention, whatever may arise, even if the mind is agitated, even if the breath is an heaven. One mind. It is really the sense of unified attention, one mind is another way to say it. So, only the lips move. But it's important here for me to insist on the fact that, again, body, mind, and speech or breath are in unity. If we've got too many thoughts, our body posture will be uneven, and our breath will be very short. If our posture, well, you understood me. I won't do the first section of the text again. But it's very important to keep that in mind. The point really is to go, to advance towards harmony of these three doors. So to advance towards harmony of body, speech and mind right here, right now. And through the body, through the mind, through speech, forgetting about body, mind and speech. Just keep one thing. Just keep recitation. You see, some schools practice mainly the door of mind, and that's the case of the Chalninji schools. Some schools practice through the gate of body. That's the case of the Tsautung school. Of course, to harmonize mind. And Linji schools don't have nothing to do with the body? No, of course no. We practice the door of mind, but we practice it through actions. That's also why working is so important in our tradition. But some traditions are specialized on the door of breath, especially yogic schools. So these three are very important. I don't want to talk too much about the really esoteric alchemic, and all these things. It exists and it will happen naturally. What is important to understand is that if you work with your mind, it will influence your body and your speech. If you work with your speech, it will influence body and mind. If you work with body, it will influence to others. So, whatever way you choose, you will influence others. The other doors. So it is important to know the specificity of each door, but not to try to cultivate all doors at the same time. Actually, cultivation of one door done with your whole body, speech and mind is cultivation of all doors. They aren't separated. We are just using words here to make ourselves understand, to understand ourselves. I hope this is clear. You see, to say it in another way, when the practice is right, whatever practice, its consequence, its natural consequence, is the same. Body, speech and mind in unity. That's the natural consequence of a good practice, whatever the practice is. Chan Zen is not about one method in particular. So in our tradition, of course, the door of mind is very important. That's also why we insist on maintaining attention, this unified attention. And on stopping seeing first, and then stopping what is at the root of our natural tendencies, our habitual karmic tendencies, if you want, the shit you do all the time, even if you know we'll do it, and you culpabilize, there is more capability, and you do it again and again and again, and you see yourself doing it. That's the shit I'm talking about right here. It's nothing fancy, really. It's the thing you see and you don't want to see, but you know you get to work on, and we are all the same. And that's also why we don't privilege one posture particularly instead of another. For example, in formal practice, I like always to insist on the fact that sitting is just as important as walking. Actually, I prefer beginning while walking. And another thing, very, very, very important, I always insist on it. Walk just as much as you sit. Good advice, for example, is to, when you walk, you're walking, or you're walking, depends on the posture you take. Recite the Buddha's name with each step. And when you sit, work on listening. Work on your watu. Work on something more stable, where you get to go into yourself, into something which is really an observation practice. Of course, if you are a total beginner, hearing is contained in the fact of recitating, when we'll see that at length later. But a simple recitation, but it is on fully, with all body and mind, with ego dropped away, is Zen itself. Nothing has to be added, nothing has to be taken. So that's it, really. And I could say many more things about Vajra or mantra or diamond recitation. Say it as you want. So we will go to something even more subtle, which is the 8th section of the first part, silent recitation. I'm reading the text right now. Just a minute. maybe it lost here. Okay. Here I am. So, I'm reading the text again. These are quite short. Well, this one will be a bit bigger, because there are a lot of subtle things in there. There are instances when it is not appropriate to recite either aloud or in a low voice. There are times when it is awkward to finger a rosary. There are still other times when even diamond recitation may be inappropriate. I will just pause here. You see, as I said before, the practice of recitation is a beautiful raft technique, tool, because you can use it in many situations. And actually, the idea is to practice it as much as you can in your daily life. And that's why contextuality, the context is so important, on knowing what is the context you are living and what is the appropriate type of practice. And you see how the environment and others, in a way, are taken into consideration here. You don't want to show others that you are Buddhist, that you will practice. No, it's a way of humility. Just do things simply, just practice sincerely. No need to show or to disturb others. It's your thing, it's your path. That's a sincere practice. So, for such instances, the ancients have devised an excellent expedient. It is not to move the lips, not to utter a sound, but merely to concentrate mind and thoughts on recitation, silently touching the upper front teeth with the tongue, or alternatively to visualize this action. The only condition is that the Buddha name be clear and distinct, though it is uttered not from the mouth, but from the self-nature. The faculty of hearing and the inner mind interpreted. The inner mind is stamped on the tip of the tongue. The tip of the tongue pulls along the faculty of recitation. The faculty of hearing hears the self-nature. The three, inner mind, hearing, recitation, form just one unit. Recitation interpenetrated with recitation, in time the visualization of everything as mind only, everything as one mind or just one mind is realized. So this is the text, and it is very profound. Actually, the most subtle form of recitation is this one. And the most subtle part of the huatu, of hearing, is in there. The most fine type of concentration is in there. It is a small manual of practice by itself. Just this. So we'll go into it again. So the technique is very simple. Not to move your lips, not to utter a sound, but only to concentrate mind and thoughts, everything you have, your whole body, mind and speech, right now, silently touching the upper front teeth. So that's the thing. Just put yourself plainly, totally in the practice, and choose a point to concentrate. Maybe in your hands, maybe in your teeth, maybe anything else really. Be fully concentrated on one point. Because that's the first part of the practice, to concentrate your mind fully on one point. But what to do? What is the essential part of the practice? And it says it quite clearly. The only condition, the Buddha name should be clear and distinct. And why? Because it is so easy with the practice of recitation, and listen to me well, it is so easy to fall into an hypnotic trap, to recite and recite and recite again, and to cultivate a certain kind of meditation that brings no wisdom. It can be a real bliss to just blah 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 blah, but you are not there. And because you have no attention of the moment, you think that this is a no ego moment. Oh, this is the whole point of the practice. The whole point of meditation, samadhi, is to get prajna, is to see things clearly. So it is very important when you say the name, listen to them fully, be clearly attentive, and try your best to be there, to do the task. Now, the very subtle part, and don't be afraid, the third part, the subtle part of the practice of this text is only about this. We will go into this in depth. So, the sounds, the Buddha name will not be uttered, will not be said, recited through the mouth, but through the self-nature. If you recite clearly, distinctly, with all you have, with all sincerity, it is your own Buddha nature which is chanting the name. It is not you wanting something. No, there's nothing to get here. Numbers of recitation don't count, only sincerity, only doing the practice fully, and not losing your time and the time of others. Life is short. Body, speech and mind in this life right now. And with each time you say the name of the Buddha, say it fully. Each time you say it fully, with full attention, you are a Buddha manifesting its activity. That's manifesting the Buddha's activity. So, the faculty of hearing and the inner mind penetrate your inner mind, what you are at your most intimate level, and your hearing are just one. You are just hearing. That's what it means. Just hearing. There is only just hearing. So, here it is funny. The text says, the inner mind is stamped on the tip of the tongue, on the place you choose to focus, because you will focus mentally, but it's a good thing, as we've seen, we are humans, and touch can be important and a good tool. That's why we use beads. If you focus in a place in your body, you will also use that tendency, that facility we have to focus through matter, to touching. And then you focus with your mind and through touching. And when you do that, the tip of the tongue of mind, because you're not saying anything with that tongue. That's wonderful. The tip of the tongue, the faculty of hearing and recitation are just one. So mind, faculty of hearing, recitation are not seen as the separate things. You don't see yourself seeing your mind trying to practice. Don't try to analyze yourself when you practice, just practice. And when you do that, mind, hearing, recitation, just one. That's the whole point of the practice. This just one, with no you in the process. That's samadhi. That Zen, through any door, can be achieved. And here is through the door of fully reciting and fully listening. That's the whole secret. And I will just repeat that again and again and again. That's the whole point. And then we realize everything has mind only. Everything has one mind. That's actually one of the beauties of the faculty of hearing, is that it is very surrounding, a very full sensation. I don't know how to say that. It is very at the core, really, of our being. I had wrote a long time ago some commentaries, written commentaries I often use, and I will go through some parts of them for these more subtle parts of the text. So this form of recitation, it is originally written in French, so I will translate it briefly. This form of recitation is the most subtle in our tradition, and it is seen as the first step towards serious Zen practice. It allows us to progressively enter into the intimate kingdom of Kuan Yin Chan, Kanon Zen, Kuan Yin Huatu, the Zen, the Chan of listening to the sound of our own nature. Have you heard of the famous koan by Akwin Zenji? What is the sound of one hand clapping? It also works with this sound faculty in a very subtle way. We use the same string, we use the same tool, if you want. So technically, it is a continuation of the forms of recitation we've seen previously. The sound is produced and fully received by the pure mind of the practitioner. And this purely it is inner recitation and inner hearing. And our true nature, our own mind does that. That fully saying the name, fully listening to it, it's a kind of circle, and it goes by itself. It's so magical in a way, in ourselves. That is called the golden circle of practice, of an unified practice. One single pure thought is produced and received with full attention. But where does that thought come from? Where is it received? Who listens and who recites? It is important at first, to master concentration, this unified one-pointed concentration. And this story of tongue at the tip of the, how is it said in English, sorry, at the tip of the, touching the upper front teeth with the tongue. So at the root of the superior part of our teeth, because that's, to say it in another way, it's a way, actually. I will talk just a little bit about it. Even if it is more subtle, esoteric, yogic, say it as you want. It is a way to connect, actually, two channels. One passing in front, in Chinese yogic and Taoist practices. One passing in front of the body and the other on the back of the body. And the two of them can be joined by putting the tip of the tongue there, and the two of them joined also in the lower Dantian, Tanden Ara region. And there are a lot of variants of that in different practices. Sometimes the two channels are lateral, like in the Tibetan tradition. Sometimes they are front and back, like in the Chinese tradition. But in each case, there is a bridge done by the tongue when it connects the two parts of a channel together. And when this subtle form of recitation is mastered, not only in the formal space of practice in a practice room, Chan hall like this one, but also in daily life, in every daily activity. It is a good thing to actually turn the light of mind internally and to ask the existential question: who is reciting and who is listening? This is the beginning of the practice of Huatu. Huatu is before words, before thoughts, before all that. Pure mind ground. It's a way to say it. This practice is specific to the Chan Linji practice. And it is normal that at first questioning or looking inside seem to be a bit forced. It is a bit difficult. It is not feeling